July 10th, 2016. That was a day, nearly 10 years ago, that The Outside of Madness aired for the first time. And ever since then, it's been viewed as the best episode of ReZero we've gotten, from its opening segment, to the direction commitment, to portraying the despair of Natsuki Subaru with a ruthless content that disregarded any and all expectations coming into the episode, and finally ending as Requiem of Silence plays with the credits rolling. It makes sense why for such a long time it sat at a throne compared to every other ReZero episode. Despite not having the best content to any degree, its production value and direction was somehow able to carry it far beyond what it should have been, being hailed by many people as even the best episode in all of anime, period. But today that has changed. After nearly 3,600 long days, the day The Outside of Madness gets surpassed has arrived. Let's talk about it. The biggest spoiler warning I could give is to not make this your first experience of the episode. Please watch the episode wherever you do and come back after you finish watching it. If any of you are expecting some amazing editing on this video, I'm afraid you won't be able to have your wish fulfilled. As someone who's read the novel, usually there's always room for complaint for people like me with the adaptation of the episode, but I have nothing to say in that department. I'm still in shock by how good this episode was. Genuinely, I mean nothing but away after finishing this episode. Maybe I'm getting clouded by recency bias, but I genuinely believe this episode, for me at least, has surpassed Season 1 episode 15 and 18, as well as any other episode in the entire series. Newbaru is pushed to his limits in this episode, beyond everything he can handle, even with his attempts to reveal everything. The episode begins with Ram's capturing of Newbaru in an ice age. And even if after this undeniably suspicious move by Subaru, Emilia refuses to give up on him, and even when at a time where almost no one else here would likely believe a word he says, she tries to listen to him and give him a chance to explain himself. Newbaru gets knocked out, and he awakes to the name of the person he hates the most in the entire world. Natsuki Subaru. Natsuki Subaru's name has haunted Newbaru everywhere he went. This was a name that should have only belonged to him and should have given him the feeling of being seen, but instead, it only reminded him of how even his own name was no longer truly his own, and that even when someone calls his name, it was just because they wanted to see the other Natsuki Subaru, the one they actually love with their heart. No matter what he does, it's all useless, because even the Natsuki Subaru they all love was a murderer, and someone trying to blame the murder of Emilia on him. A person who wore a mask to conceal their true intentions from others. Newbaru even fails to live up to the urge of murder he had just finally been able to collect earlier, to kill Ram, and instead saves Julius from dying from a witch beast anyway, not being able to even stick to thinking of the people around him as enemies or friends, being entrusted by Julius with Echidna's safety as he runs off, because that's just about the only thing Newbaru is skilled at, running away from his problems. He crashes out when he gets accused of acting by Echidna after trying to shoulder everything and keep it calm in this unknown situation. Newbaru has a full crash out, getting down to his knees at anger for even thinking of what he is going through as acting, but that anger soon just turns into cries of whimper, as begs to the gods who sent him to this world as a form of punishment. Despite not believing in a god, being raised in a family that never thought of God as someone that existed, he begged to the gods. Newbaru begs to the gods to forgive him and to send him back to home for the sin he had committed back home, wasting the love his parents gave him and not being able to give them a singular thing back, just using their own kindness to his own advantage, and that this world must have been a wake-up experience to make Subaru realize how good he had it in his original world, a way to make himself realize that he needs to beg for forgiveness and truly realize that he needs to do better than just this. Newbaru, because of his foolishness, then allows Beatrice to die because Echidna didn't realize that the scorpion from earlier was still left over, and then explodes to kill Beatrice and put Echidna to a state of death, and then fails to even mercy kill her despite having been entrusted by Julius, who knew he was going to die with Echidna's safety, failing to even fulfill her very last wish before she died. As the Witch of Envy embraces with shadows full of endless love that he was all too acquainted with, wishing that she would completely erase any signs that Newbaru existed, giving him a true death to prevent him from being sent back in time to do all of this over again, wishing that he would just disappear after becoming one with the shadows who were embracing him. But to Subaru's surprise, a silver bell chimed in the midst of despair that he was not used to. Emilia saves Subaru from the shadows and runs away to a distant part of the watchtower before Subaru eventually stops her, crashing out at her because he didn't understand why she would try to save someone as pathetic as Natsuki Subaru. Someone who did not deserve all the love he received. Why did a person like him get loved this much by others? He just couldn't comprehend any of it. But in response to that, Emilia instead just tells Newbaru how she and Natsuki Subaru and all the times he saved her and protected her even when she gave him 1,000 reasons why he should stop and leave her all alone to deal with the problems on her own. And similar to the reasons Subaru had for going through all of that for Emilia, for her too, it was because she liked Subaru, not Natsuki Subaru, but Subaru, and asked for his name, just like he did all the way back at the Lu house when they just met for the first time. And as Emilia, Newbaru tries to get closer as the ground beneath them crumbles, they ascend into freefall, with nothing but just their hands to grasp the other, as they both await their untimely death. This is the beauty of this episode, one so filled with showing both the sides of despair and hope Natsuki Subaru possesses in this world. Even the title card is so beautiful and filled with depth that it's hard to not ramble about it. The grey and purple scheme when it comes to ReZero title cards in particular for episodes is something that is used very rarely, because it is used only when an episode is heavily about Emilia and Subaru's relationship with each other, and this episode manages to act as a beautiful parallel for all three other episodes and the culmination of what each of those episodes developed inside Emilia's heart. That's all this story is about, a reason to believe, the person I'll fall in love with one day, and finally, this episode. Because in all earnestness, beyond the despair and death that gave popularity to this series, this is not a story about despair and hopelessness like I have always said, but a story as simple as one about the story of true love between Emilia and Natsuki Subaru. ReZero is just another story about an insecure boy going through actual hell, fighting fate that tries to steal away the lives he cares about time and time again, until he was able to finally overwhelm the inevitable fate that comes his way. For a girl he loves to death, one that he's willing to suffer agony and beyond, so that he can convey his feelings to that equally insecure girl, so that they could have a talk with their hearts open to each other. This heartfelt talk about their feelings is backed up by Styx Helix, which plays here as a slow and somber piano arrangement. In Season 1 Episode 25, where Subaru is the only one who truly, from the bottom of his heart, wants to protect Emilia from dying, having a heartfelt conversation about expressing himself to be the one who was the wrong in the road capital, wanting to make things right and proclaiming that he does truly love her. That's why the title is so beautiful. The title, Re, Life Starts in Another World from Zero, is a direct parallel to Arc 1's ending episode title, Life Starts in Another World from Zero, with it just being the addition of Re, because it is just a redo of that moment in a way. ReZero would never be ReZero without the beautiful relationship with Emilia and Subaru, one that extends beyond time and space. Even if they either loses their own memories, they'd undoubtedly fall in love all over again, time and time again. It is such a beautiful parallel to both the final episode of Arc 3 as well as the final episode of Arc 1, where this episode gives us Newbaru's version of both those episodes, with him being the one who's asked his name compared to Emilia being the one who was asked her own name at the end of Arc 1. Both Arc 1 Subaru and Arc 6 Emilia being the one who goes out of their way to save the other, with them having reasons that the other could never begin to understand, since the other had no memories of the experiences the two had together. But even then, they must force themselves to remember, because they love each other, precisely because they remember. It is why they must be the one to save them, because even if they might not have the same memories, that is still Natsuki Subaru and Emilia. That won't change no matter how many times they lost their memories of each other. It is such a beautiful parallel to how both Natsuki Subarus needed to have a heartfelt talk with Emilia to be able to truly start their lives in this world. Since without Emilia, their lives can't truly begin, because she sits at the very center of all of it, and being the reason why Natsuki Subaru cannot give up, no matter what happens to him. With both episodes ending with the other, from the bottom of their heart, designed to hear the other person having saving the other. It is the closest we can say we have to a confession of love. Hell, I would even say it is a much more romantic than just any normal confession of love ever could be, with an expression so deeply filled with content as seeing Subaru's weak, feeble proclamation that his name is Natsuki Subaru. The Stay Alive Regain remix of the original kicking in the end is just the cherry on top, with Subaru's final quote in this episode being so beautiful that it's hard to not glaze to the stars and above, as in my opinion, it is just as beautiful combination of what makes Subaru's suffering in this volume ultimately full of meaning. Even if you forget, I will not forget any of you. The same promise the two closest people made to him. Even if Subaru had forgotten about the memories they made together, Beatrice and Emilia would never forget their own memories and would give their best to help Subaru. And so to ensure those promises wouldn't go to waste, Subaru makes a promise to himself. Newbaru could no longer escape the end he and Emilia would have to face, but even then, he still marches on with a confident expression on his face, a contrast to the expression of despair that has been on his face from the entire time he has been here. They both hold hands, as both of them keep falling until they shall meet their untimely death at the hands of fate deciding so, just like the very first death Natsuki Subaru originally experienced, holding Emilia's hands as tight as it could until life left his body. Natsuki Subaru was a man who created miracles. He was a man who was capable of saving others. He was a man that was capable of loving everyone that surrounded him. He was a man who was capable of putting himself into danger if it meant he could save the life of someone else's. If Natsuki Subaru was someone who could do that, then Newbaru would give it living his best to come to that version of Natsuki Subaru, even if he hated down to the very core of himself. All of it was nothing compared to the desire Newbaru has to now be the one who saves everyone, rather than the one who has to get saved by others. As Newbaru goes through all the memories he's experienced through this short-lived hell of the last few days, he confirms his resolve and decides. He was entrusted by Julius, believed in by Beatrice, forgiven by Echidna, and desired by Emilia. If the man who stood there wasn't Natsuki Subaru, then the only thing that he could have done was to become that very man who could do all of that, and truly live up to the title of Natsuki Subaru he's been given in this world. Which is where the battle began. Right here, began the battle to kill Newbaru and bring back the Natsuki Subaru that could save them all from zero. Thank you, White Fox. It's been an incredible season so far.